I can feel the jungle breathing. That's the only way to describe it. Every leaf drips with condensation that sounds like whispers. Every shadow moves like it has a pulse. And the heat, God, the heat wraps around your throat like a wet towel you can't remove. My rifle feels like it weighs 100 pounds, but I know it's only 7.5. I checked yesterday. Or was it yesterday? Time has stopped meaning anything out here. My watch stopped working on day 12. The moisture killed it. Or maybe it was the blood. I don't remember anymore. What I do remember is Sergeant Morrison's face when the radio finally died, when that last burst of static faded into nothing, and we realized nobody was coming for us. 23 men walked into this green hell. 12 of us are left. The others? Some I buried with my hands. Some I couldn't bury because we had to move too fast. Some just disappeared, swallowed by the jungle like they never existed. And me? I'm doing something right now that would get me court-martialed if anyone back at base knew. I'm wearing a dead NVA soldier's hat. I'm carrying his satchel. I'm moving through these trees the way he would move, thinking the way he would think, because I learned something nobody taught me in basic training, something that goes against every rule in the manual. Sometimes, to survive the enemy, you have to become the enemy. My last letter home was 72 days ago. 72 days since my wife Sarah heard my voice. 72 days since my daughter Emma got a goodnight kiss, even if it was just written on paper. They think I'm dead by now. Hell, maybe I am. Maybe what's walking through this jungle wearing my face isn't Private First Class Michael Torres from Corpus Christi, Texas anymore. Maybe it's something else. Something the jungle made. Something that learned to hunt the hunters. And the worst part? The part that's going to haunt me forever. It's working. I'm still alive when I should be dead 100 times over. But the things I've had to do to stay alive, the line I've crossed, the person I've become, I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse. What I do know is that when I finally make it home, if I make it home, I'm never going to be able to tell anyone what really happened out here. Some stories are meant to be buried. Some truths are meant to stay in the jungle. But tonight, 50 years later, with death sitting in the chair across from my hospital bed, I'm finally ready to tell you everything. Because I've carried this silence like a stone in my chest for half a century, and it's time to put it down. It's time to tell you about the 72 days I became a ghost, the 72 days I learned that survival has a price, and that price is sometimes who you used to be. If my story resonates with you, please hit the like button to bring a little light to this father's heart. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my upcoming life stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from and what time it is there right now. It makes me so happy to know what corner of the country or world you're listening from. My name is Michael Torres, and I'm 75 years old. The doctors tell me I have maybe 6 months left. Stage 4 lung cancer, they say. Though I've never smoked a day in my life, Agent Orange probably. Vietnam's final gift, delivered 5 decades late. But that's not why I'm telling you this story. I'm telling you this because for 50 years, I've kept a secret that's been eating me alive from the inside out. My wife died never knowing the truth. My daughter grew up thinking her father was a hero. My grandchildren wear my old dog tags like they're some kind of sacred relic. And maybe they are. But they're also a lie. Or at least, not the whole truth. In January 1970, I was 25 years old, married for 3 years, with a 2-year-old daughter I'd barely gotten to know, before Uncle Sam decided I was needed in Southeast Asia. I was assigned to Charlie Company 3rd Battalion, 7th Infantry Regiment. We called ourselves the Cotton Balers, a name that came from some battle in the War of 1812 that none of us cared about. What we cared about was staying alive long enough to get home. Our mission was supposed to be simple. Nothing in Vietnam was simple. We were supposed to patrol a sector of jungle near the Cambodian border, report enemy movement, avoid engagement when possible. Standard search and patrol, 3 weeks, they said, in and out. We'd be back at base before the monsoon season hit. That was the plan. But plans in Vietnam had a habit of dying faster than the men who made them. I need you to understand something about Vietnam in 1970. This wasn't the beginning of the war, when everyone still believed we were there to save democracy and stop communism. This wasn't the end either, when everyone just wanted to get out and go home. This was the middle, the worst part, when we knew we weren't winning but we were still dying anyway. More than 40 Aus-Irland American soldiers had already been killed. More than 250 Aus-Irland had been wounded. And back home the country was tearing itself apart. Students were protesting. Veterans were throwing away their medals. But in the jungle, all that politics didn't matter. What mattered was the guy next to you, the weight of your rucksack, the sound of the safety clicking off your M16, and the fact that every single step you took might trigger a pungy stake trap or a mine or an ambush that would end your life before you could even scream. Our sector was supposedly light enemy activity. That's what intelligence told us, light enemy activity. I learned real quick that intelligence didn't know shit. The NVA and Viet Cong controlled that jungle like it was their living room. They knew every trail, every stream, every hiding place. They could hear us coming from a mile away. They could smell our cigarettes, our soap, our fear. And we were stumbling around like blind men in a house full of traps. We were 2 weeks into our patrol when everything went wrong. Morrison, our sergeant, was a good man, 38 years old, from Alabama, with a wife and 4 kids waiting back home. He'd done 2 tours already. He knew the jungle better than any of us, but even he didn't see it coming. We were moving through thick vegetation, single file, trying to stay quiet, when the world exploded. Automatic weapons fire from 3 sides, RPGs, grenades. They'd set up a perfect L-shaped ambush, and we'd walked right into it like amateurs. I hit the ground so fast I bit my tongue. Blood filled my mouth. I could hear screaming, return fire, Morrison shouting orders that nobody could hear over the chaos. Corporal Davies, the guy who'd been walking point, was gone, just gone. Where he'd been standing was just red mist and pieces. I fired my rifle at shadows, at muzzle flashes, at nothing. My training took over. Squeeze, don't pull, breathe, aim, fire. But my hands were shaking so bad I don't think I hit anything. The ambush lasted maybe 5 minutes. When it was over, 7 of our 23 men were dead. 4 more were wounded, bleeding, crying for medics. And Morrison was on the radio, trying to call for extraction, for help, for anything. That's when we heard it. The radio died with a pop and a hiss. Dead battery. No, wait, bullet hole. A stray round had punched right through our only connection to the outside world. Morrison stared at that radio like it had just murdered his mother. Then he looked at us, the 16 men left alive, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Real fear. We were 30 miles from base, 30 miles through enemy-controlled jungle, with no radio, no way to call for help, and an unknown number of NVA tracking us. Morrison made the decision. We move. We move now. We move fast. And we move quiet. No firefights unless absolutely necessary. No stopping except to treat the wounded. We were going to walk out of this jungle or die trying. I remember thinking, as we started moving, how wrong the training had been. They taught us to be loud. They taught us to use our firepower, our helicopters, our artillery. They taught us to dominate the battlefield with American technology and American aggression. But out here, cut off, alone, that doctrine was going to get us killed. Out here, we needed to be invisible. We needed to be ghosts. I just didn't know yet how right I was about that, or how far I'd have to go to become one. The first 3 days weren't so bad. We moved during the day, hiding when we heard enemy patrols. We drank from streams, ate our rations slowly to make them last. We treated the wounded as best we could, but 2 of them died on the 2nd day. Jackson and Martinez. Good men. We buried them in shallow graves and kept moving. Morrison was holding it together, keeping us organized, keeping us moving in the right direction, using just his compass and dead reckoning. But I could see the strain on his face. We all could. On the 4th day, everything changed again. We walked right into an NVA base camp, not a big one, maybe 30 soldiers, but they were between us and the direction we needed to go. Morrison called a halt. We set up a defensive position and waited for dark. The plan was to go around them, add maybe 10 miles to our route but avoid contact. That was the plan. But one of our guys, Private Henderson, fresh from basic, only in country for 3 weeks, he panicked. He opened fire. I don't know why. Maybe he saw something. Maybe his nerves finally snapped, but one burst from his M16 shattered the silence, and suddenly we were in a firefight again. This time we won. Barely. We killed most of them, drove the rest off. But the cost? 2 more dead, including Morrison. A bullet caught him in the throat. He bled out in my arms, trying to tell me something, but only bubbles of blood came out. He died looking at the sky, probably thinking about his wife, his kids, Alabama. 14 of us left. And now, I was in charge. Me. 25 years old, with 7 months in country. I was the ranking soldier left alive. Private First Class Torres, leader of what was left of Charlie Company. I gathered everyone together. We were all terrified. Some of the guys were crying. Henderson was nearly catatonic with guilt. I looked at their faces, these boys from all over America, Washington State, Brooklyn, Nebraska, Georgia, and I knew if we kept doing what we'd been doing, we'd all be dead within a week. That's when I had the idea, the crazy idea, the idea that would keep me awake for the next 50 years. I'd been watching the NVA, studying them. The way they moved through the jungle, the way they set up ambushes, the way they seemed to just disappear. They didn't fight the jungle. They became part of it. They moved at night. They used the trails we avoided. They wore soft-soled shoes that didn't make noise. They traveled light. They lived off the land. Everything we'd been taught was wrong. We were trying to be American soldiers in a place where being an American soldier got you killed. We needed to become something else. I told the guys my plan. We stripped down. No more rucksacks except for weapons and ammo. No more olive drab uniforms that smelled like American detergent. We take clothes from the dead NVA. We move only at night. We avoid all trails during the day. We bury our dog tags. We become them. I expected arguments, objections, maybe even mutiny. What I got was silence. Then, slowly, one by one, they nodded. Henderson spoke first. "If it keeps us alive, Sergeant, I'll wear anything." I wasn't a sergeant, but I didn't correct him. Right then, we needed rank, we needed structure, we needed someone to follow, and somehow that someone was me. We spent that night transforming. It felt wrong. It felt like betrayal. We stripped the bodies of the NVA soldiers we'd killed, taking their shirts, their pants, their sandals, their hats. Some of the guys threw up while doing it. I did too, but we did it. We buried our uniforms, kept only our weapons and ammunition. We smeared mud on our faces, our hands, our arms. I looked at my reflection in a puddle of water and didn't recognize myself. I looked like the enemy. I looked like a ghost. And that's exactly what we needed to be. The next 70 days were a nightmare I've never been able to fully describe. We moved like shadows. We slept in trees. We ate what we could find. Roots, insects, whatever we could scavenge. We crossed paths with NVA patrols, walking right past them in the darkness. And they didn't see us because we looked like them. We moved like them. We'd become them. I remember one night, day 28, we were resting in an abandoned village when an NVA squad came through. We froze, held our breath. One of them walked within 3 feet of me. I could have reached out and touched him. He looked right at me. Right at me. And he kept walking. Because in the darkness, covered in mud, wearing one of their hats, I wasn't American anymore. I was just another ghost in the jungle. But here's what they don't tell you about survival. Here's what I learned during those 72 days. Survival changes you. It strips away everything that makes you human and leaves only the animal, the thing that wants to live no matter what the cost. We started making decisions I still can't justify. Decisions that keep me awake at night even now, 50 years later. On day 36, we came across a small NVA camp. 4 soldiers. They had food, real food, rice, dried meat. We were starving. Our rations had run out 2 weeks before. We'd been eating bugs, leaves, anything we could find. We needed that food. Morrison would have gone around. Morrison would have avoided contact. But Morrison was dead, and I wasn't Morrison. I gave the order. We attacked at dawn. Silent. Knives only. No gunfire to give away our position. We killed them all, killed them in their sleep. I can still see their faces. Boys. They were just boys. younger than me. I took the first one, put my hand over his mouth, and drove my K-bar into his chest. He looked at me with these wide, shocked eyes, and I watched the light go out of them. I became a killer that morning, not a soldier, a killer. There's a difference. A soldier kills in battle, in the chaos of war, where it's kill or be killed. What we did that morning wasn't battle. It was murder. But we did it, and we ate their food, and we survived another week because of it. We lost 3 more men between day 36 and day 50. Carter stepped on a mine. Williams got sepsis from an infected wound. Rodriguez just gave up. Sat down one morning and refused to move. We tried to carry him, but he fought us off, said he was done, said he'd rather die here than take another step. We left him. Had to. I still don't know if that was the right call. I still hear his voice sometimes calling after us as we disappeared into the jungle. 11 of us left, then 10, then 9. Every day we became less human, more ghost, more animal, more whatever it took to survive. We stopped talking to each other except when necessary. We stopped using names. We became a pack, not a unit. And I was the alpha, the one making the calls, the one deciding who lived and who died. On day 61, we finally saw it. Through a break in the canopy, maybe 2 miles away, we could see the firebase. Our firebase, home, safety, life. The guys wanted to run for it. I had to hold them back. 2 miles of open ground between us and salvation, and I knew in my bones that ground was crawling with enemy. We'd come too far to die now. We'd become too much to throw it away. So we waited. We watched. We planned. For 3 more days we circled that firebase, looking for a gap, a weakness, a path through. And on day 64 we found it. There was a stream that ran close to the firebase perimeter. The Americans had cleared the vegetation on both sides for security, but the stream itself was overlooked. Too small to be a threat, they thought, but it was deep enough, just barely. We spent the entire night of day 64 crawling through that stream, submerged up to our noses, moving inches at a time, holding our breath when we heard voices. At one point, an American patrol walked right past us. Right past us. They were our own guys, and they didn't see us because we were ghosts. We'd become so good at being invisible that even our own army couldn't see us. Just before dawn on day 65, we crawled out of that stream right at the firebase perimeter. We were covered in mud, wearing enemy clothing, carrying AK-47s we'd scavenged along the way. The sentries almost shot us. Almost. One of our guys, Jenkins, he had the presence of mind to scream, "American, American, don't shoot," in English. That saved our lives. They took us at gunpoint, didn't believe we were who we said we were. We didn't have dog tags. We didn't look American. We didn't smell American. We looked like enemy combatants who'd just infiltrated the base. It took 6 hours before they identified us. 6 hours of being held in a bunker, being questioned, being treated like prisoners. When they finally confirmed our identities, when they finally believed we were the survivors of Charlie Company, declared missing in action and presumed dead 45 days earlier, the reaction wasn't what I expected. Nobody congratulated us. Nobody celebrated our survival. Instead, there were questions, hard questions. How did you survive? Where did you get those clothes? What did you do out there? I told them the truth, mostly. I told them we'd scavenged enemy equipment. I told them we'd moved at night. I told them we'd hidden during the day. What I didn't tell them was how far we'd gone. I didn't tell them about the camp we attacked at dawn. I didn't tell them about the things we'd eaten. I didn't tell them how we'd learned to think like the enemy, move like the enemy, become the enemy. I didn't tell them that somewhere in that jungle I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The debrief lasted 2 days. Then they put us on a helicopter, sent us to Saigon. From there, a plane to Japan for medical evaluation. Then finally home. I landed in San Francisco 72 days after my last letter. 72 days during which my wife thought I was dead. The army had sent her a telegram, missing in action, presumed dead. She'd already started the grieving process. She'd already explained to Emma that Daddy wasn't coming home. And then I walked through our front door, alive but not really, there but not present. and I saw her face. The shock, the relief, the questions. So many questions. What happened? Where were you? What did you do? I couldn't tell her. I opened my mouth and nothing came out except lies. I told her we were lost. I told her we hid. I told her it was scary, but we made it. I didn't tell her what I'd become. I didn't tell her about the blood on my hands. I didn't tell her that the man who left for Vietnam wasn't the same man who came back. The army gave me a Bronze Star. For valor, they said, for leadership under extreme conditions, for bringing my men home against impossible odds. 9 of us made it, 9 out of 23. The other guys got medals too. We had a ceremony, speeches, photos. They called us heroes. The whole time, all I could think about was the NVA soldier I'd killed with my knife, the look in his eyes, the way his blood felt warm on my hands. After the ceremony, the 9 of us stood together. We looked at each other, and without saying a word, we made a pact. We would never talk about what really happened out there, never tell anyone the full truth. What we did, what we became, it was going to die with us. We shook hands, some of us hugged, and then we went our separate lives. I never saw any of them again. I heard Jenkins died in a car accident in 1978. Carter drank himself to death in 1983. Rodriguez called me once in 1991, drunk at 3 in the morning, crying about the things we did. He hung up before I could say anything, shot himself 2 weeks later. One by one, they all found their own ways to deal with what we'd carried. Most of them didn't deal with it. Most of them let it kill them in the end, just slower than a bullet would have. Me, I built a life. I went back to work, had 2 more kids, bought a house, coached Little League. I became the most normal man you'd ever meet. I smiled, I laughed, I went to church. I mowed my lawn every Saturday. I became so aggressively normal that nobody would ever suspect what was underneath. But every night for 50 years, I've had the same dreams, the same faces, the same blood, the same moment when I stopped being Michael Torres and became something else. My wife knew something was wrong. Of course she did. She wasn't stupid. But every time she asked, I shut down, changed the subject, made excuses. After a few years, she stopped asking. We had a good marriage. I loved her. But there was always this wall between us, this secret I couldn't share. When she died last year, her last words to me were, "I wish you'd let me in." I knew what she meant. I held her hand and I cried, but I still couldn't tell her. Some things are too dark to share with the people you love. You keep them buried because you're trying to protect them, trying to protect yourself, trying to pretend they never happened. But they did happen, and they shaped everything that came after. Looking back now, with death sitting in my chair and time running out, I can see it clearly. Those 72 days in the jungle taught me something that nobody wants to admit. Survival isn't heroic. It's not noble. It's not brave. Survival is ugly and brutal, and it costs you pieces of your soul that you never get back. The person who walked into that jungle in January 1970 died there. He died in the ambush, or maybe in the abandoned village, or maybe the morning we attacked that camp with our knives. I don't know exactly when, but he died, and what came back wasn't him. What came back was something that learned to live with the ghost of who he used to be. They gave me a Bronze Star, but the real medal, the one I earned, was figuring out how to live with what I'd done. How to get up every morning and pretend to be human when I knew I'd become a monster. How to kiss my wife and hug my kids and coach Little League and smile for the camera, while carrying the weight of those 72 days on my back. I've kept this silence for 50 years because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. I thought you were supposed to bury the horror and move on. But here's what I learned, too late to do anything about it. Silence doesn't bury the horror. It just lets it grow in the dark. It feeds it, nurtures it, turns it into something even bigger and more terrible than it was when it happened. If I could go back, if I could do it all again, I'd tell the truth. I'd tell my wife, I'd tell my kids, I'd tell everyone who'd listen. Not because I want forgiveness, I don't deserve that, but because maybe, just maybe, speaking the truth is the only way to stop being a ghost. Maybe it's the only way to become human again. I'm 75 years old. I have months to live. This is my letter home, 50 years too late. This is me finally telling the truth about the 72 days I spent becoming something I wasn't. doing things I can't undo, crossing lines that can never be uncrossed. If there's a lesson in this, it's not about heroism or bravery or survival. It's about the cost. Everything has a cost, and sometimes the cost of survival is the very thing you were trying to survive for.